What is up? Welcome to another video. In today's video, I wanted to walk you through how I was able to 10x my LinkedIn following in a little less than a year, taking me from 0 to just about 5,000 followers, and take my LinkedIn posts impressions from things like 2,000, 1,000 to closer to 136,000, 85,000, 50,000, etc., etc. So you can hopefully learn some things and then go apply it to your own LinkedIn profile and be able to start growing. So if that sounds interesting, stick around and we'll talk about it in this video. So this is going to be walking you through my process. It's nothing too complex, but I wanted to break it down to bring some transparency for y'all. So to kick it off, let's get into just right into it. Step one. So step one is, if you don't even know what you're doing or you've never been in this, you want to pick an area or a niche or something of the sort that you feel good that you could talk about. You want to feel good about it and be able to feel like you are bringing value, because that helps you sustain what you're doing and brings a lot less imposter syndrome. So when you're doing that, think about that. In your LinkedIn bio, you want to make sure that you are, writing that one-liner that tells like who you are, what you do, so that people have a reason to care about what you write about, and ultimately give them a reason to follow and engage with you. And so, for example, mine, I am a designer of 10 years, and I write specifically, or did write to people and other designers. So I wrote to designers that are looking to learn and advance their skills, and I also wrote to designers who are looking to get into entrepreneurship and may not know how to, and are just looking to generally be inspired in, the journey of entrepreneurship, because a lot of people kind of wait on the sidelines and just are looking for inspiration and motivation and things to keep going. So start off by picking your area that you could write about and sustain it. So step two, now that we kind of have this general area of who we're trying to talk about, what kind of person we want to target, next step in our process is we want to pick 4 pillars within our bucket of expertise. So again, something you feel good about writing, it makes it easy for you to write about, you have experience to back it up. And then we're going to kind of float between those 4 pillars within that. So since I write about design, that's kind of my general high-end bucket of what I write about to designers. I have mine broken down into 4 content pillars. And so you're basically making it so you can cycle through these 4 content pillars to really give you some variety and depth to your content. To not keep it so stale, reach different audiences, and show that you have different variations of expertise. So for me, I did design strategy, which is where I talk about tips in design, career progression, improving your craft, working with different stakeholders across companies, and then stories, what's going on in my personal life. What are some lived experiences? What are things that make me human? My own personal journey, right? Like, people want to relate to people. Rally in business. Rally is my product for designers, and just general business updates for my design agency. And so that's like sharing updates, progress, behind the scenes, what I'm working on in the business, new feature releases, updates to the product, any of those kinds of things, just business and product related, I share in this bucket. And then sharing overall design work. So if I'm working on client work, or working on, in the past, if I'd been at a full-time job and worked on projects for that, I'll just share like small pieces of nuggets of design work. I'll share visual UIs, I'll share prototypes, I'll show maybe here's a cool problem we solved and a challenge that we faced and how we conquered that, to really show that like, hey, I have done this before, and it's not just me talking, but I actually have substance and proof of work to back it up. And this is usually the stuff that wins clients, or they say, hey, I relate that, or I like that, or like, those things, and then they'll reach out. But those are my 4 buckets, and you can kind of see they all kind of loosely fall into and target designers and that person that I'm trying to reach, but they have enough variation to where it makes it easier to write about and spreads the information. Okay, so now that we have picked our 4 pillars, so think about that for you. what those 4 pillars are. So the next one up that I did was every month I would sit down and I would gather ideas. And I would just do a lightweight idea brainstorming session of what are all the ideas that I want to write about under each pillar. And so I generally try to do like 4 or 5 ideas per pillar and just write a bullet point. Like, hey, maybe it's about like how to work with a difficult stakeholder, and that was one post. Or maybe it was about like my experience as a digital nomad, or why I think you should not enter the design career in 2026 if you're new, or things like that. And I just do one quick little note, maybe a couple bullet points. They don't have to be perfect, but we want to generally write a lightweight idea and flush everything out, kind of just brain dump the ideas out. During this time, I'll also go into LinkedIn and I would browse a little bit, find the larger creators that I like, get ideas from their posts, see which ones did good, which ones didn't, and then I would start to kind of gather ideas with that. And so you can see for me, this is kind of like a look of what that, it probably took me, I would say it takes me about 3 hours, maybe 2 hours, and in the beginning, and then after a while, it probably, some months would only take me 1 hour to just dump ideas for a month because I've gotten more efficient at it, right? And then some months it would take longer, but. So we would have things like stories, right? So for me, you can kind of see here's an example of my content pillars and the stories broken up. So I wrote, digital nomading is tough for rhythm. What started weekly has now shifted to daily thoughts. Let's talk about money, a recent conversation about a client, I hate process, I bought my wife a $3,000 course, and just all these like things that make me relatable as a human. Then I put a few bullet points and then moved on. And then design strategy. It was like, okay, landing your first role as a manager. I talk about my experience, how I feel fractional versus full-time, typical design system for working with clients, seeing companies, 2 different mindsets, et cetera, and then sharing design work. I kind of just wrote down 5 things that I'd share, like a mood board that I worked on for a client, a recent screen that I worked on for a client that I really liked, how I give direction without giving too much direction, a specific scoring card for a project, and then a branding thing that I worked on for my wife for her business. And then for Rally and overall business products, I just talked about some general things that I want to share for work in progress. And so that's basically what my monthly dump would be, right? And none of it's flushed out, but it's the starting point to help me stimulate the deeper sessions, right? So after doing that, then once a week, for me it would be on Sundays or Mondays, kind of just depending on how the week would go for me, I would translate all of these into a Notion board and flush out that week's posts. And so you could see here, I have basically this working Notion doc where I would have, here's the ideas, what would be the work in progress, if I had filmed it or written it or wrote it, and then once they're all in here, I would flush out all of those posts on that day. So I'd write the full post, and then I would move it to posted when it's finished being posted. But essentially with that, when we would have like LinkedIn content, I would also just go under here after I wrote the posts, and I would go in and create all of these different like sliders, or I would do basically the visuals that go along with it. So some I would choose to do as sliders, and I would just quickly go in and create some content, some visuals for that, for these ones, and I would just make those very easy for me. And then if it was, these are all my sliders together, and then if I have like all content, this is just like tons of just really quick, like 5-minute visuals to represent whatever that post was, and it's messy and it's there, but and then maybe sometimes it was from some filming that I did, things of that sort, but I just did a rough visual of whatever it was for the week. And so then after we'd done that once a week and we would write everything, I would then have my stuff ready to go. And I started slow, but worked up to 7 posts a week. So in the beginning, I think I did 3, then I went to 4, then I went up to 5, and then we went back, to 7. And I just worked my way slowly. And so I had it on a posting schedule, essentially. There was no specific day a week that I did a certain kind of post, like a story or a strategy. It kind of just felt like whatever felt right in the moment, I posted, made it easy. But I did kind of follow this structure here, which was design strategy. I posted 2 posts a week. Stories, I did 2 posts a week. Rally and business updates, 2 posts a week. And then sharing design work, I did once a week. Design work, I would love to share more than once a week, but sometimes just the nature of where you're at in the progress of work doesn't always make sense to share. So one time a week felt pretty good. So that was kind of my schedule, and I think you, for your own sake, can break up whatever method or breakdown of types of posts you want to do each week, because there's no perfect method to it. A note about that is there's no such thing as like a perfect format, like sliders or pictures or stories or only text or only video or anything like that. Like, what I've learned is if people relate to it, the content will do well. And if people don't relate to it, or if it's really low effort, it's really high AI generated, it will not do well, and people don't like it, and you won't get as much engagement. And so for me, some weeks sliders did really good. Other weeks they completely flopped. Sometimes just pictures did good. Other times it was just text. And what that really told me was just write good content and people will, like it. If it's good. If it's bad, people won't like it. And so there's no perfect thing. Just write the piece and then you'll be able to do it. And so step 6, and this is one of the most important ones because I saw a direct correlation between how much of this played a part. So spend time every single day on LinkedIn. For me, I found that about an hour a day engaging with others after you post made all the difference. Make thoughtful comments, share their posts, comment on what they post, build real relationships with people, not just fake ones that you're just trying to gather their followers or get to the reach that they have, but generally trying to provide thoughtful feedback and comments and engage with it, and connect with larger creators in the space. Ones that you're trying to aspire to be, ones that inspire you, have large audiences, and thoughtful comments on their posts. I noticed a direct correlation between when I stopped kind of engaging with people because I got really busy or was traveling or just didn't take the time to do it. My engagement, follower growth, all that stuff would take a big dip. And then the second I started being more active on there daily, the second it would start to go back up. So there's a direct correlation to it, right? It's the nature of it. So just keep that in mind. And then for me, in the early days, it was like, hey, I would follow some of my early creators, engage with their content, try to build real relationships with people early on. And some of these people, I've been happy to say that I've built some pretty good connections with these people over time. So that's a pretty cool thing to do, been able to meet up with them in person too for some of them. So that's something you got to do, is engage with people every single time. It makes a big difference. And then final step here is just to have fun with the whole thing. So if you're not having fun with it, you are going to burn out. You're not going to be able to be sustainable. Fuck all that algorithm stuff, all this perfect thing that happens. Stuff changes so much. So just create authentic content to you. Things will change, and find a system in a way that works for you. This is what worked for me, and has made it really sustainable to keep going. I think if I didn't have a thing that made it really lightweight, I would not keep going. And the consistency is so much more important than a perfect system, especially when you're starting. So hopefully this helped you and brought some clarity to kind of the lightest weight way possible to grow your LinkedIn and get some impressions and all that good stuff that is out there. So thanks for being here. If you found the video helpful, smack that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.